Our next performer tries to survive her stultifying roles of wife, mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, and teacher with her life practices of poetry and singing. She finds her friendships with young people both enlivening and educating. Let's call upon this vivacious lady who aces her role in every walk of life, Miss SMITA AGARWAL.
Thank you, Kshitija. Thank you very much. Before I start, at the very outset, I wish to thank the Department of Interreligious Studies, St. Xavier's College, for inviting me to participate in this Kavi Sammelan. And in particular, I want to thank Father Keith, Dr. Radha, Celeste, Rishita, Kshitija, and Piyush for putting it all together so seamlessly and so neatly. This is a especially joyful occasion for me because Eunice D'Souza, whom I consider my mentor, taught in your college in the English department for many, many years. So I feel quite honored to be connected with St. Xavier's College. Now, it is a stark and a painful reality for us that we've completed 73 years of independence, and as we begin our 74th year of independence, just a few days ago, in fact on the 11th of August, we have had these riots, torching of police property, torching of public property. We've had mayhem, we've had deaths in Bangalore over a post on social media, which was considered derogatory. So there is no way that we can turn our face away from this present Indian reality. And this Kavi Sammelan, I feel, is very timely in its attempt to resuscitate in us these values of interdependence and harmony, which are very, very relevant today when we have had these riots in Bangalore. In February, we had riots in Delhi, in Kashmir, with the abrogation of Article 370, violence and religious confusions and problems are going on. So this Kavi Sammelan, with its focal points of harmony, interdependence, I think is very, very timely and is doing a good job. And I sincerely hope that some of the poems that have been recited here are going to lead us to introspect, are going to guide us towards, individual inner change. As I think Kriti Dubey said in her poetry, what we need is individual change and individual inner understanding that we can't go on like this. This is not what civilization is all about. This is not what human life is all about. This is not what human endeavor is all about. And we need to be able to take in the views of the other. We need to be able to support each other. So keeping that in mind, the poem that I am going to read, which is titled The Lama, this poem also talks about interdependence and harmony in a, oblique, in an elliptical kind of a manner. It is about an ordinary human being, an ordinary mountain man. In fact, he was just a school teacher who is relatively unknown even today, even though his contribution to world knowledge is immeasurable and immense. This poem is about Nain Singh Rawat. Nain Singh Rawat, he lived in the 19th century, and around the middle of the 19th century, he became an explorer, and he lived the life of a traveling man, a peddler of goods. He lived the life of a Tibetan Lama, even though he was not a Tibetan at all. He belonged to the state of Uttarakhand in India. In the days when there were no Google Maps, when there were no satellite images, he traveled the length and breadth of the Himalayas on foot, mingling with the Tibetans, learning their culture and language, and surreptitiously mapping out the mountainous terrain of this charmed, this enchanted, this unknown, this very mystifying El Dorado region of Tibet, the Shangri-La of the world, the rooftop of the world. Had Rawat not been adventurous enough to do all this, Ladakh, Nepal, Tibet, Lhasa, in particular Lhasa, and Nain Singh Rawat also discovered the source of he mapped for us the source of the river Sangpo, which is called Brahmaputra in India. And imagine just 133 years ago, in fact, on the 26th of August in 1867, Nain Singh Rawat visited the gold mines of Thok Jalang in the heart of Tibet. And, so many Himalayan passes, so many beautiful Himalayan gorges, river gorges, all this mountain terrain would have remained inaccessible for many, many years to come if this ordinary Uttarakhandi man had not been brave enough to take it upon himself to travel on foot with just a pack mule all over the length and breadth of the Himalayas, mapping it out for the British government. So as a culturally fluid and as a culturally sensitive individual, Rawat in the 19th century, for me, is an ambassador of goodwill who realized the value of interdependence and harmony. And so this poem that I'm going to read for you is dedicated to Nain Singh Rawat. The Lama, for Nain Singh Rawat, cartographer. In the poem, I just need to explain, in the poem, the I of the poem is located in the 19th century, in the mid-19th century, when Rawat is making his travels. So it goes back in time, and this is the I of the poem is also located in the 19th century. I cannot say where he came from. Possibly from beyond the tall mountains, from Tibet, past crevices and glacial screes, like a high, stinging wind. The bells on his pack mule tinkled. He shuffled along, peddling borax, salt, and gold, a lion-maned, eagle-eyed Lama. He traveled down the gorges from the Jad Ganga to Harsil. The beauty of Bhairon Ghati poisoned his blood. He taught himself to wear his curse like an amulet. We chanced upon him singing of fires that burn, snows that numb. Seldom does he speak of the serpent that has seized his tongue. Mountain dweller, below you stretches a plain that asks nothing of you. The river that was always by your side shall flow while you till and sow, and having unlearned language, relearn the songs of silence. Thank you.
That was beautiful, ma'am. You actually took us back to those times. So I had a short question for you. This is regarding your poem. So when did you hear or read about Nayan Singh Rawat for the first time, and did you immediately think of writing on him?
Okay, so this is a good question in the sense that Nayan Singh Rawat, I heard of Nayan Singh Rawat through word of mouth. In the region of Uttarakhand, in Kumaon and Garhwal, you know, most people know about him, they talk about him. And my father, who was an army officer and who was a wonderful raconteur, he would, when we were children, when I and my siblings were children, we would, you know, our father would every day tell us stories, tales of adventure, and, you know, people who had done brave, who had, you know, undergone a great hardship and had come out with brave acts in this very, very difficult terrain and mountainous region of Uttarakhand. And he used to tell us stories about Corbett and his shooting of tigers. And one day he just came up with this Nayan Singh Rawat story of how Nayan Singh Rawat was, you know, for the British. He was working for the Royal Geographical Society, and how just on a pack mule, you know, he trekked all through Uttarakhand with his brother, and how they went to these very, very dangerous places where they would have been put to death in a second. And he mapped out all these routes, and how my father told it, you know, that kind of remained with me. I did not write the poem immediately because I think when I had heard the story, I must have been a young adult. I may have been 18, 19. So I did not write the poem immediately. But the way my father recounted it, the way my father built up the character of Nayan Singh Rawat, it remained with me. And I must have written the poem when I was, say, in my 30s or 30, 35. I must have written it then, but I have to thank my father for planting the seed of this poem in me and for actually creating the character of Nayan Singh Rawat. Now, in the 20th century, some books and some material has come out about Nayan Singh Rawat, but I'm sure most of you don't know much about him, even though, as I repeat, that his contribution to world knowledge is immense.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really an informative topic to talk about.